For this next story that we've been following, as Cassie Ventura will reveal of her ex-boyfriend, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. This will be the R&B singer's third day on the stand, with cross-examination by the defense starting today. After the jury was sent home for the day Wednesday, lawyers battled it out over the rules for that cross-examination, which is slated to start at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time and continue into the day tomorrow. Combs' attorney saying, quote, "We have worn our defense on our sleeve since the first bail hearing. Everybody knows we are going to bring up infidelity and text messages of infidelity." He also noted that both sides in their opening statements refer to the volatile nature of that decade-long relationship between Cassie and Diddy. Cassie was asked Wednesday on the stand why she testified at Combs' criminal trial and responded, quote, "I can't carry this anymore. I can't carry the shame, the guilt." Now, prosecutors allege that Diddy coerced and abused women for years with help from a network of associates and employees while silencing victims through blackmail, kidnapping, arson, and beatings. They accuse Diddy of using his, quote, "power and prestige" to force female victims into drugged up, elaborately produced sexual performances with male sex workers in events that were dubbed, quote, "freak-offs." Diddy's attorneys expected to argue that the government is demonizing and distorting the sexual activity of consenting adults. A lot to discuss about the case, as we have been for several days and will be for several weeks. I do want to bring in Michael Brown, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us this morning.
Good morning, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And first off, the big question here, as I mentioned, Cassie Ventura has been on the stand now. This will be day 3, and she's expected to be cross-examined not just today, but also tomorrow. How significant is she? Again, we're very early on in the trial, but how significant is her testimony in the grand scheme of things?
Josh, she's the star of the show. I mean, she's the one with the extensive, long-lasting relationship. She was his girlfriend for many years. She has intimate details of what went on, who was there, how it happened. And it was, as I indicated, it was a long time. So she's really the star witness. And remember, they have that video of her in the hotel being pretty significantly and viciously beaten by Diddy. So that's corroborative evidence of what she's talking about on the stand. That's important, that's significant, and it's a big deal.
And I did want to ask, is it fairly standard to have the star witness testify this early on? Again, we are just days into this trial.
Josh, there's no standard in that. They made a calculated decision. I think it's a good move, and here's the reason why. Because she's the one, again, who's going to talk about all the details, and there's this video, and there's no way around or to get around that video. That's corroborative evidence that really puts Diddy in a very bad light. So if you put that in at the beginning of the trial, the juror's perception of Diddy is going to go all south from that point forward. And I think what it also does is it gives some credibility to every subsequent witness down the road. So I think it's a good move for the prosecution to do that in this particular case.
I want to pull this up because we want to get folks' thoughts at home as they're watching. Do you think Diddy will testify in his own sex trafficking trial? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but for folks at home, if you want to scan that QR code on the top right-hand side of your screen or go to livenowfox.com/connect, you can cast your vote here. Obviously, the options yes, no, and if you want to say not a good idea, which seems to be the main option that folks have been picking here. Will Diddy testify? What are your thoughts? What are some of the pros, the cons here?
It's really a decision that I think, and I'm confident the defense will make after the prosecution rests, because you just don't know how the case is going to go down on the prosecution's case. And remember, they have the burden. They have to prove their case. Having said that, he may be in a position where he's confident, I don't need to testify. I don't want to subject myself to cross-examination. And that's obviously the biggest con. On the other hand, they may say, hey, the only way to salvage this case and get an acquittal is for him to take the stand, humanize himself, explain some of the testimony that was put forth before the jury, and that's really the only way to save himself. So it's really going to depend on how the prosecution puts their case in.
And you're watching these results come in real time, so I am going to leave this up on your screen so folks at home can vote right now. Many folks out there saying not a good idea, but very close. It's no. So if you add those together, that is 100% of the vote right there on your screen. What role does the judge play in maybe managing the flow of all of this testimony when certain lines of questioning do become repetitive? We're talking about a trial that is going to last for 7, 8, 9 weeks. So you have to imagine that some of the testimony is repetitive. So does the judge kind of break in and say, look, we've already heard this, or just let it go?
Good question, Josh. I mean, listen, the prosecution is allowed to put in evidence, and it can sometimes be cumulative. That happens to be a legal objection, which is cumulative in nature. But if there's corroborative evidence, I think the judge would probably permit that. But at some point, if it's overkill, yes, the judge can step in and say, hey, you've proved your point. It's established already. Move on. So, yeah, the judge is the referee, and the judge is going to dictate what goes on in that courtroom.
As far as, this whole situation kind of playing out, this is no question a very high profile case. A lot of people have seen the video you were talking about with Diddy and Cassie. A lot of people have heard about the case in general and know kind of bits and pieces. So how does everything work to essentially maintain that the jury does stay impartial and stays on course so you don't have maybe a mistrial?
Well, Josh, if during jury selection, the judge is going to ask the jurors, have you read anything about this? Are you familiar with this? Have you seen any evidence? And the people that indicate they can't be fair and impartial, they're excluded from the jury pool. Now, going forward, once you're sitting on the jury panel, the judge instructs them at every moment in time, every break, at the end of the testimony for the day, you are not to look or see or review anything pertaining to this case in the media, on the internet. And you have to have confidence in the people in the jury that they will follow the judge's instructions and not do so.
The defense was arguing that some of the evidence was leaked by the government. There's posts all over social media with the full Cassie video there that is several minutes long. How might that impact the fairness of the trial?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to impact it at all, Josh. I know there was a hearing several months prior to the start of the trial, and the judge looked into that issue. Again, even if it did happen, those are things that come out and they're flushed out during jury selection. So if, again, somebody has seen something, they're familiar with the case, where it would affect their ability to be fair and impartial, that juror would be precluded from sitting as the trier of fact on this case, so that you get 12 jurors who are fair and impartial. So if it was leaked, if that is in fact true and it hasn't been established, those folks would not be sitting on the jury. So I don't think it would have an effect at all.
I want to get your take on this because I've spoken with several legal experts and I just want to know what you have to say about it. But how does it change things? Maybe make it more difficult to follow what is happening in the courtroom when you have, journalists in there listening to everything and kind of relaying the information, posting on social media, but you don't have cameras to capture it all for folks out there. Does that change anything?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I'm a big fan of transparency. And in today's world, most jurisdictions across our country do permit cameras live into the courtroom to capture exactly what's going on. Here in the federal district and actually in our county in Suffolk, New York, we don't permit cameras in the courtroom. And what you're now doing is you're relying on somebody's perception and somebody's take on what just transpired, as opposed to allowing the public to look at it and make their own determination. It is a problem for the population. For the jury, it isn't, because the jury ultimately are the ones who are watching it and then making the determination. But for the public, it is, and a public jury trial is a big deal in our state and our country.
For sure. Michael Brown, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and help break all of this down. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Real interesting case, Josh, and I'm looking forward to watching it. It's going to be a really interesting case.
Yeah, a lot of us wish that there were cameras in the courtroom. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
My pleasure. Thanks.